DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com, BallOverseas.com. This is the Overseas Basketball Blueprint. The topic of this video is for any players who may not be knowing, those of you who don't have overseas experience, maybe you don't know too many players who played overseas, you haven't been overseas. I've talked about this before. I'm going to talk about it again. I'm talking about it right now. Overseas basketball is not the NBA, but it ain't sweet. I want to make sure I'm being very, very clear about this. And this message is specifically for those players who you may be more of a casual basketball fan. Those of y'all who already know how the game goes, this one is not directed at you, but you can keep listening anyway and maybe add in any commentary that you have of your own. But a lot of Americans, not just players, but just American people, period, who are basketball fans, tend to believe that they see the NBA. We know the NBA is the highest basketball league in the world, the best 450 to 500 players in the world playing in the NBA. And then they see, overseas basketball is kind of like, they see it as a step down from the NBA. Now, for some players, overseas basketball and the NBA, they have an option between the two. Some players could be on an NBA roster playing, or they could go play overseas, and they may choose overseas because this is a better opportunity for them financially, maybe stability-wise, maybe lifestyle-wise, and they won't have to be bouncing around like with the NBA where they may be at the end of a rotation, whereas overseas they may be the star of the team. So these are some reasons that some players it's an option. Other players, maybe players like you, players like myself, it's not like you were choosing between an NBA opportunity and an overseas opportunity. You just needed an opportunity, period. You ended up playing overseas. So are there some players who play overseas who couldn't get a job in the NBA even if they were trying to? Yes, absolutely. A lot of players. Are there some players who could get a job in the league if they wanted it? Absolutely there are. There are players who turn down league opportunities to go play overseas every single year. So some casual fans see this and they say, okay, well, this player is playing overseas because whatever reason they couldn't make it in the NBA or they're not good enough to play in the NBA. For some players that is true, but that's not really the way that it goes, and that's not really a fair way to say it. Like, this player is playing overseas because they're not good enough to play in the NBA. Listen, overseas basketball is professional basketball. These are players who are being paid a full-time salary to play basketball for a living. That's their full-time job, playing basketball. They're not having any other job. There's only, of all the players in the world who play basketball, you got to be in the top 1% performance-wise to call yourself a professional basketball player. Only the top 1%. And basketball is a very, very popular sport. All right, everybody in the world plays basketball. So this is something that you all need to, any of you casual players or casual fans, keep in mind, like, yes, overseas is overseas. It is not the NBA. The NBA has more visibility. The NBA pays more money. It does more revenue overall. And if a player could have a stable job in the NBA, they will probably take it over an overseas opportunity. But again, overseas is not sweet. And this is specifically, let's talk to the players out there who are thinking about playing basketball overseas. Sometimes I get messages from players who are like in high school or something, haven't played college ball, and they're coming of age to be college players, but they want to go play overseas instead of playing in college because maybe you saw, the Ball kid and the Hampton kid, and there was the kid Tyler, and it was Brandon Jennings, a few players who came straight from high school and they just went and played overseas. And now every year we're seeing more and more players have that option, and maybe they could go take an overseas job instead of going to play in college. And now the G League's offering $500,000, at least as of this recording, for players to go take that route. The thing is this, those players who went from high school to playing overseas, all of them were top ranked high school players. They were top ranked in their class. The high school players who've been reaching out to me asking this question about, hey, could I possibly do the same thing that those players did? Let me ask you a question. Are you ranked in your high school class? Are you one of the top 10 players, in your high school class? Because if you're not, then you probably don't even have a team overseas offering you anything. Those players who took the overseas offers, the RJ Hamptons and the LaMelo Balls, though they had overseas teams reaching out saying, hey, if you want to go overseas instead of going and taking that college scholarship that you already been offered, that full ride to a high major D1, if you don't want to do that, hey, you can come play with us. Or who knows what the Ball kid situation was, because with his brand and all that stuff. But y'all understand what I'm saying. If you don't have those kind of offers, if you're in high school and you talking about you maybe want to play overseas instead of going to college, You would go overseas because the team is offering you to go overseas. They're reaching out. They're finding out who your contacts are, whether they're calling your manager, your high school coach, your mom. They're letting you know, hey, if you want to come play overseas instead of going to college, take this deal. But if you don't have any offers to go overseas and you don't even have any offers to go to college, all right, overseas is not an option for you. And I understand why some players think that maybe is an option because, again, they've seen a couple people do it, so they think they can do it. No, it doesn't work like that, people. And understand that you got to be supremely talented to just go overseas and be able to compete in any league overseas. I don't care what level, what country it is. There's some players that did Europe, some players did Australia, but you got to have a certain level of talent to compete there. And if you had that talent, somebody when you were in high school, they would have recognized it already. So if you haven't been pinpointed as one of those top 10 players in your high school class, I'm not saying that you don't have talent. I'm not saying you don't have potential. I'm not saying that you can't be great. I'm not saying that you can't be a pro. Because listen, I was not ranked in my high school class, but I still went and became pro. And players who were above me or supposed to be better than me, at least in my city, I wasn't really paying attention to the national, but in my city, they didn't become things. You can look up past rankings of high school classes for every year going back 20, 30 years. There's going to be a bunch of players in the top 50. You like, who is that? You never even heard of them because they didn't play anywhere. They didn't do anything, even though they were ranked. So just being ranked does not guarantee that you're going to become a pro, and not being ranked doesn't guarantee that you can't become a pro. But if you are not ranked, you do not have the overseas option. So this is not a choice for you. Because some players seem to think that they have that choice. No, you don't. So what you need to do if you're coming out of high school and you want to play overseas is go to college, work on your game for 4 years, which you do need. Work on your maturity for 4 years, which you also need. Work on your body, building your body up for 4 years, which you also will need, because at the pro level, again, it ain't sweet. You're not walking out of some high school gym and then just walking onto a pro court and doing something unless you are the LeBron James. All right, you got to have a certain level of talent to do that. Have I emphasized this point enough? So when it comes to getting overseas basketball opportunities, or when it comes to just the overseas basketball not being NBA, that's the topic here, but it not being sweet, don't think that just because it's not on TV and players aren't getting $100 million contracts that the players can't play. Because if you were to go to your local gym and go find some guys who can play overseas, go find someone who plays overseas in your local league or whatever and play against those players. See what kind of skills they have. See the way they carry themselves on the court. See what kind of game they got. Maybe one individual player, you might come up against a guy who's not really a scorer. That's not his thing to score points. So he might not score 25 points in a game, even in a local league back home. Doesn't mean he can't play, because that might not be his role. Now, you go against somebody who's a scorer and they give you 40, then you'll understand what I'm saying. Or go get in a game where everybody plays overseas except you and see if you can keep up. All right, those are the ways that you would figure it out. Don't just go off of how many points somebody had or if they did a move that you did, because that might not be their role. Because remember, overseas basketball is not everybody just going one-on-one. Doesn't mean playing overseas doesn't mean you have to be able to score 30 at the local LA Fitness League in the summertime or average 25 in the Pro-Am. It means you can fit into a certain role on a professional team where y'all watch basketball, right? You watch basketball? So you see how in basketball, not everybody scores all the points. Usually it's 1 or 2 guys who score all the points, or girls who score all the points. Everybody else has a role to play. And playing your role well enough, you can get a really nice contract. There's a bunch of role players in the NBA who make a lot of money just by playing a role. Not because they score a lot of points, but by playing a role the right way. And you might play against that player in some local league, and they won't even be that impressed. They don't really jump off the pace of you. Like, it ain't nothing that impressive about this guy, but he makes how much playing basketball? That's because they can fit a role in a particular system. So it ain't all about points. Most players on most basketball teams are not scoring a whole lot of points. So, and again, I'm making this really for the casual player and the casual fan who thinks that it may be all about points or all about the NBA is just this one level and overseas is just trash. That's not the way that it works, people. And I don't want you to get a rude awakening or get your chance overseas, get a rude awakening and realize that you didn't know what you didn't know. That's why I'm making sure I'm putting this out right here so you don't make any rookie mistakes. So if you have not yet gotten the book, The Overseas Basketball Blueprint, the book is free. All you do is cover the shipping. Go to balloverseas.com. It gives you everything you need to know so you can start your career right now and not waste your opportunity to play overseas. And make sure you go to balloverseas.com/call and register for that free call you get from me. Just fill out a short form. I'm going to call you direct and ask you some questions about where you're going in your game, what you want to do with your game, what you want to do with your career, and how we can best create material that's going to help you moving forward. That's at balloverseas.com/call. work on your game. Dre all day.